It has been a blessing to be here in Dallas for the Empower series. I had a wonderful opportunity to engage with people here in the community. And I would say, coming away from me, one of the messages that most resonated is this idea around success and greatness. That if success is what you do for yourself, greatness is what you do for somebody else. And what I've taken from the spirit of this event and this community and the people that have been gathered here is that while they certainly desire to be successful and to do well for themselves and for their families and for their community, most importantly, they desire to be great. And if we have a greater calling from God to serve, to love, to give, and to affect others in a positive way, that to me is the challenge that I take, and I believe others will take from this event today. What can we do for somebody else? In the words of Dr. King, everyone can be great because everyone can serve. So my question to you and to myself is, what are you doing to serve others? God bless you. Thank you for having me. My latest book, which I've got over there, is it has a very provocative and some might argue controversial title. Black Faces. I see people shaking their heads, like Black Faces in White Places. I don't know if anyone here has had the experience that I've had of being one of the few or the only one. All right, I see a couple of hands in the air, a couple of heads shaking, I see a couple of heads nodding. Whether it's the only one in your school, the only one in your department, the only one in your group, I see a couple of heads shaking, or the only one in your organization. Now, we've all had varied experiences of being one of the few or the only ones. And so what I did was I went out along with my co-author, we interviewed dozens of accomplished African Americans. Corporate CEOs, nonprofit executive directors, principals of schools, media personalities, corporate executives, accomplished entrepreneurs, clergymen and clergywomen, all who have reached the top of their field. And what we wanted to understand was, how did they make it to the top? But more importantly, how did they do it without losing a sense of who they are? How do they stay grounded, stay centered? And to that, we extracted, or we concluded, what we call the 10 game-changing strategies. And with that backdrop, I want to speak to you to the following theme. Beyond the glass ceiling. Beyond the glass ceiling, new strategies for a new generation of African Americans. Beyond the glass ceiling, new strategies for a new generation of African Americans. Let me begin by making a statement that undergirds everything I will say. By a show of hands, who's ever heard of the phrase the glass ceiling? Show of hands. All right, fantastic. So I believe that the glass ceiling is now an outdated metaphor. I believe it's no longer relevant. I believe it's no longer appropriate. I believe it's time for a new metaphor. Now that might sound crazy to some of you for me to say that, but understand this, that for the past 30 years or more, the glass ceiling has been the long-standing proxy, the long-standing phrase for all things having to do with barriers to advancement for minorities, for women, for people with disabilities. That has been the mantra. And arguably, it's the reason why we have events like the Empower series, which prompts me to invite you to answer the following question. And I want you to think about this. What do you think was the ultimate goal back in 1986 when we defined the glass ceiling and designed several programs, strategies, speaker series, et cetera, to shatter the glass ceiling? What do you think was the ultimate goal? You know, if we could go back and talk to employees and entrepreneurs alike in 1986 and ask them, what do you hope to see 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 40 years from now? What do you hope to see accomplished by defining a glass ceiling and shattering a glass ceiling? What do you think they would have said? You think the answer would have been to get good jobs with a high income for African Americans? Good jobs with a high income. Do you think that was what they would hope to see 40 years later? Do you think they would hope to see us represented proportionally at the executive levels? That if we're 12% of the population, we're 12% of executives or 12% of successful entrepreneurs. Do you think that would have been their answer? Do you think their answer would have been to have proportional representation in the workplace? That again, if we look at how we are represented in the community, does that reflect itself in the workplace? Could that have been the answer? Or do you think the answer would have been to build wealth within our communities? To have some increase in measure of wealth amongst our people and in our community. Could that have been the answer to the goal? What do you think would have been their answer? And in fact, more importantly, here in 2017, what's your answer? What do you hope to see 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now because of efforts like the Empower series, because of what you do in your professional world with your children? What do you hope to see different in this world 40 years from now as it relates to our advancement in the workplace and in entrepreneurship and et cetera? Well, I'm going to give you my answer to that question of what I believe the ultimate goal was and still is to this day. But before I talk about where I believe we need to go, let me talk about where we've been. Stick with me. 1995, 12 years later, the U.S. Department of Labor established the Glass Ceiling Commission because this issue of the glass ceiling was considered so important to our national future that they wanted to understand the issues and how to design programs to address the glass ceiling. So in 1995, the U.S. Department of Labor found that minority professionals made up less than 2.5% of senior level executives in Fortune 500 companies, less than 2.5%. Now, that was 1995. Much has changed since 1995, right? For example, we are now in greater representation in our society than ever before. 37% of the US population, 37% are now so-called traditional minority groups. African Americans, Hispanics, Native Americans, Pacific Islanders. Those same groups will be the majority of our country before the year 2040. And they're already the majority in California, here in Texas, and will be the majority in less than a decade in New York and in Florida. We see that changing demographic across our entire country. What else has changed? We have greater economic wherewithal today than ever before. The African American and Hispanic communities will earn $4.5 trillion in 2017. $4.5 trillion with a T. Are you kidding me? That is decisively more than most countries on this planet. And believe it or not, we are near parity in the workplace today. We are roughly 12% of the population, 11% of the workforce. Near parity. So much has changed. In fact, for the generation of minority students, professionals who are here today, you are better educated, better equipped, and better prepared than any generation before you. You've got top grades from top schools, and many of you graduated at the top of your class. Some of you magna cum laude, others summa cum laude, just a few, thank you Lord, but you still made it through. You know what it's like to be perceived as if you speak for our entire community. That if you're late, we're all late. If you're wrong, we're all wrong. If you're right, you're the exception. At times, you've had to work twice as hard, overcome twice as many obstacles, deal with twice as many hurdles just to be considered equal to your peers. But that's never held you back. Why? Because you are well educated, never duplicated, rarely replicated, quite sophisticated, and very much appreciated for all that you do for our community. You are modern day Jackie Robinsons in a modern day way. Perhaps not as prominent as Jackie Robinson, but you are all blazing trails at your schools, in your places of work, and in your community, whether you know it or not. So I say to you, if you're here this morning, that I take for granted that your game is tight, that you've worked day and night, that you have seldom been wrong, you have almost always had to be right, which makes you like a bright ray of light, or perhaps a rising star about to take flight. In fact, I'm here to say that you are simply out of sight. Why? Because you've proven over and over and over again that you can overcome any plight. To obstacles and barriers you break through with tremendous might. And to sore eyes in our communities, you are a very welcome sight. That's why you keep rising and rising beneath a kite. So I say to you, what a guy named JJ said on a show called Good Times, you are dynamite. Dynamite. So a lot has changed since 1995 because of you, because of the Empower series, because of all of what you've done. But in light of all of what I've shared with you, increased economic wherewithal, increased representation in the population, increased parity in the workplace, despite all of these advances, all these accomplishments, you would be astounded to know where we stand today at the executive levels. From 2.5% in 1995. Today, we stand at an incredible 3.5%. All that progress, all those programs, all those efforts, 3.5%. Or, if you don't believe me, according to the Social Investment Forum Foundation, and get this, they did a study 10 years after the Glass Ceiling Commission to see what kind of progress we made 10 years later. And here's an excerpt from their report. Their words, not mine. While the number of women at the highest levels increased over the decade, the proportion of executive positions held by minorities was generally unchanged. These results are even more disappointing in the context of increased participation of women and minorities in the workforce. There is ample documentation that 10 years after the Glass Ceiling Commission report, progress toward eliminating glass ceiling barriers has been modest at best. Their words, not mine. Which partly explains why I'm arguing that the glass ceiling metaphor is outdated. Very little has changed. In my opinion, the glass ceiling metaphor was only relevant when we were new to corporate America, new to education, new to nonprofits, new to entrepreneurship, new to government. But think about it, the adjective of glass and the noun of ceiling. Glass implies that you don't see the barriers. Like you just kind of bump up on it and didn't know it was coming. We know the barriers now. We know what the barriers are, and ceiling implies that you can't break through, that you hit a wall. Well, people have broken through. I suspect there's people in this room who have broken through to become principals, to become executive directors, to become entrepreneurs, to become corporate C-suite participants. The list goes on. So we're not dealing with a glass ceiling, we're dealing with something else. The barriers are no longer invisible, they are not impenetrable, and statistically speaking, we are exactly where we were 40 years ago today, from 2.5% to 3.5%. So I say it's time for a new metaphor. I here today, as part of the Empower series, Clifton, I hereby retire and lay to rest the glass ceiling hereby, henceforth, and forevermore. So you gotta be asking, all right, Dr. Pinkett, Rhodes Scholar, Apprentice winner, MIT PhD, what is the new metaphor? I'm so glad you asked. I hereby replace the adjective noun of the glass ceiling with the ever-changing game. Yeah. I'm gonna break that down. Some of you are like, where's he going with this? I promise you it'll make sense. If not, then Clifton will fire me. So, ever-changing game. Let's start with game. What's the definition of a game? There's two definitions of game. I'm gonna give them both to you. First definition is furthest from my argument. Second definition is spot on. First definition of a game is any activity engaged in for diversion or amusement. Now that's not what I'm talking about. Anything that is a game for diversion or amusement, meaning being a college student or being a principal at a school or being an entrepreneur. There's nothing amusing or done for diversion about any of that. So that's the furthest. Ask yourself the question, do the adjectives I'm going to give you describe your professional reality? To succeed where you find yourself, school, work, or otherwise, to succeed, does it often involve strategy? Does it often involve rivalry? Does it often involve struggle? Second definition of a game, Merriam-Webster.com. Any activity undertaken or regarded as a contest that involves rivalry, strategy, and struggle that is conducted according to rules. She's shaking her head. She's like, I like that. I like it too. Now, as we're all aware, the rules change. And not only do they change, but the rules for you may be different from the rules for somebody else. And as these rules evolve, hence the ever-changing game. Some of you aren't convinced yet. Give me one more moment to get off my academic soapbox. Given my experience, game makes sense to me because game has become quite popular in our modern vernacular. It is both a noun, he's got game, she's got game. It is also a verb, meaning to cheat. Don't game me, don't game him or her. It's also an adjective, meaning ready and able. I'm game, he's game, she's game. And I think back to the games I played back in 1986. Games like Connect Four, Sorry, Uno, Monopoly, Life. Does anybody remember Candyland? Yeah. I know the young folk are like, what you talking about? But who remembers Candyland? I remember Candyland. There we go. That's for the grown folk right there. And inasmuch as the game of corporate America or education or nonprofits or business, like any other professional environment, it is a competition. Let's not be fooled. It is very much a competition, a serious competition. Those games I played in '86, those were serious competitions. I know folk who've lost their best friend off a game of spades or bid whist. Some of you know what I'm talking about. Some of y'all lost friends off of a game of spades or bid whist. That's real talk. It's a competition. Here's a quote from the book. Bruce Gordon, former Verizon executive who became executive director of the NAACP. Bruce said the following: whatever you choose to do, you will end up playing in one game or another. You may play a corporate game. You may play an education game. You may play a health game. You can play any game. But if you want to be successful, you need to understand the rules of the game. Take it seriously. It's a serious game. Last thing I'll say, the glass ceiling had these associated metaphors of the ladder and individuals climbing the ladder to break through the glass ceiling. That was the metaphor of the glass ceiling. The ladder, climb it, break through. For me, the metaphors of the ever-changing game are the playing field, where you're a part of teams, and the teams work together to help level the playing field for everyone. That to me is a powerful metaphor. Well, whether you agree or disagree with my argument for the ever-changing game, what you will agree is the following: that the challenges for us today are different than the challenges that we faced 40 years ago. And that this is a new era with new opportunities, with new obstacles that need new strategies. And I believe that there is a mindset that undergirds those strategies, and that mindset is the one who thinks like an entrepreneur. No matter what your walk. Now, I'm not talking about entrepreneurship as something you do, but as a way that you think. That entrepreneurship is a mindset. You can be an entrepreneurial executive, entrepreneurial teacher, entrepreneurial librarian, entrepreneurial business person, but entrepreneurship is a way that you think, and I believe it is a signature mindset for the 21st century. Whether you are an entrepreneur creating a new organization, or what we call an intrapreneur who's working within the confines of an existing organization, there's common characteristics of how you think to navigate those environments. So, the foundation that we found from the book, the 10 strategies, strategy 1, the foundational, the foremost, the fundamental strategy is about establishing a strong identity and purpose. Establishing a strong identity and purpose. A strong sense of who you are, combined with a solid sense of where you are going. These are the essential tools to navigate the 21st century environment. Identity speaks to who you are. Purpose speaks to where you're going. Identity is your anchor. It grounds you. Purpose is your compass. It guides you. Identity is your base, purpose your bearing. Identity and purpose are about standing up for who you are and what you are about. Or in the words of Malcolm X, if you stand for nothing, you will fall for what? Everything. That's right. Old school glass ceiling thinking suggested that to navigate professional environments, you should assimilate and be like those around you. New school ever-changing game says, rejects that notion and argues that all the things that make you you, all the things that make you unique, your gender, your ethnicity, your culture, your religion, where you grew up, how you see the world, those are the things that you don't want to give up. Those are the things you absolutely must hold on to, because that gives you your own competitive advantage, your own unique perspective to see things others don't see, do things others don't do, and bring value others cannot bring. And so I'm here to say that you should see your culture as an asset and not as a liability in the 21st century. It's an asset, your most valuable asset. Because without a strong identity, without a strong sense of who you are and a sense of purpose of where you're going, when you start to see around you behaviors that are inconsistent with who you are, if you don't know who you are easily swayed like a leaf in the wind, easily taken off course, easily influenced without keeping focused on what really makes you the person that you behold. People who don't know who they are and don't know where they're going, two things happen. They get easily influenced, and if you don't know who you are and where you're going, you shy away from opportunities to help people who look like you. A great quote from Colin Powell, who said, the the following. Many interviewers, when they talk to me, they think they're being progressive by not mentioning in their stories that I'm black. I tell them, don't stop now. If I shot somebody, you'd be certain to mention it. That's real. That's real. So let's talk about what these strategies are. The foundation is identity and purpose. Let me break through 3 signature challenges and then wrap this up. The first is, how do you manage your career? Second is, how do you network? Third is, how do you think about mentoring? Career management, mentoring, and networking. I'll take each of those real quickly. Career management first. Old school glass ceiling thinking says that to manage your career, and this is what we found from the research in the book, that you should subordinate your interests and your passion for the benefit of the organization. Take one for the team. But if you've read the book, and I encourage you to certainly do that, new school thinking says that to play the game and to win the game, it behooves both employer, employee, and entrepreneur to find a fundamental fit between your passion and your work. Fundamental fit between your passion and your work. Let me give you an example. One of the studies we came across for the book compared in corporate America, corporate employees who are looking to reach the upper levels, and they compared 2 groups. Those who plateaued, they hit a wall. They tried to make it, they didn't make it, they kind of hit a wall and leveled off. And then those who made it to the top. If you compare those 2 groups, the ones who leveled off and the ones who made it to the top, the ones who leveled off have more promotions than the ones who reached the top. Now think about that. It doesn't make any doggone sense. Let me flip it on its head. The ones who made it to the top have fewer promotions than those who level off. Now how do you reconcile that? How can you have more promotions? He's shaking his head. I don't understand that, brother. Break it down. Break it down, Dr. Pinkett. I'm gonna break it down for you. So one of the people we interviewed was Don Thompson. If you don't know Don Thompson, he was the chairman and CEO of McDonald's. Now, I went to a conference. I didn't know that the chairman and CEO of McDonald's was a black man. So I see this guy. He's introduced. I came up to him after. I said, dude, you're black. He said, dude, so are you. I said, you're the CEO. He said, I'm the CEO. I said, yo, I want to interview you for my book. He's like, I got your back. He's also my frat brother, so shouts to Alpha Phi Alpha. He's like, I got you on the shield. So here's a quote from Don from the book. He says the following: I believe you have to enjoy what you do. You have to really enjoy it to the extent you look forward to coming in every day, or traveling to that city, or being on the road 50% or 60% of the time. Because you can advance to a point very quickly where you find yourself miserable and totally unhappy, and you'll come right back down the rungs on the ladder. What I've been able to do and been blessed to do, here's where it gets good, is I've enjoyed every single phase of my career. As a matter of fact, there have been several opportunities to be advanced that I declined because it did not tap into my passion. So you have to have passion about it. You have to enjoy it in the good times and the bad times. So what's the reconciliation? The managers who plateaued, when given the opportunity to advance, said yes to everything. I'll take that job. I'll take that relocation. I'll take that promotion. Never discerning, do I have any passion for that position? Do I bring any energy to that work? Do I care about what they're asking me to do? The executive said, when the opportunity is given to advance, let me ask you a couple questions here. Do I have passion for that? I don't know. Can I do my best work under those circumstances? I don't know. You know what? Don's words, I'm good. I'm not going to take it. I will pass. What's the lesson? The lesson is there's no passion, there's no purpose. No passion, no point. No passion, no pursuit. No passion, don't bother. The lesson is also in the words of the great philosopher, the great scholar, Nicki Minaj. I quoted her yesterday. Here it is again. Nicki said, to live doesn't mean you're alive. Nicki can get deep, right? She can get deep. She's shaking her head. To live doesn't mean you're alive. Passion keeps you alive. The second thing you do when we think about passion is that you also, for those of you who have young people in your life, you instill that same principle in our young people. That when you think about how to scaffold them, how to encourage them, how to challenge them, I'm always thinking about my 3 kids. What do they love to do? What would they do if they didn't get paid? What are they naturally drawn to do? And how can I enable that and scaffold that and advance that? Because that's when they will do their best work. That's when they will shine and they will find their place in this world that's becoming more and more complicated. And I said to the kids at another school, I said, what would you do if you didn't get paid? They were like, nothing, dude. I said, you're missing my point. There's something that gets you up in the morning, and if you don't know, keep looking. If you don't find it, it will find you. It will find you. Let me move on. That's how you think about managing your career. Passion must be your guiding light. Second is networking. So there's three kinds of networks. So there's three ways of describing your network. You can have a very dense network. A dense network is where everyone in your network knows everyone in your network. Be more specific. A family is supposed to be a dense network. People in the family are supposed to know people in the family. And in fact, a dense network is best for a child. It's best for a child to be in a dense network where everyone knows everyone, because everyone is there for looking out for the best interests of the child. Second kind of network is called a borrowed network. That if I drew a picture of all your contacts, there might be one person that connected you to lots of other people. You're borrowing their relationships. A borrowed network. They had the relationships, you connected with them, they introduced you, and you borrowed that network to make it your own. The third type is called a sparse network. I'm getting fancy here. It's called a sparse network. A sparse network is where everyone in your network does not know everyone in your network. That you have a contact in California, in Boston, in Florida, in Mississippi, and in New York, and none of them know each other. They're all strangers. That's a sparse network. No one is connected to anybody else. Now, old school glass ceiling thinking once suggested that you were best served by having a sparse network. Why? Because a sparse network gives you visibility into different industries, different segments, different parts of your organization, different parts of the community. If you know a clergy person and a principal at a school and a corporate executive and a nonprofit leader and an activist, that is a very valuable network because it's all diverse. And if they're all not connected, you might be the one to get them connected, which you are now bringing value. But new school glass ceiling thinking says it depends on what stage of your career you're in. Early in your career, our studies have shown that you are best served early when you're young by a dense network. Not a high-ranking executive, not somebody who's influential, but somebody who knows your discipline, knows your team, knows your group, knows what you studied, and can help deepen your expertise and ground you and validate you. Middle career, you are best served now by somebody who is more influential, whose network you can borrow. That if you look at women and minorities who have made it to the top of their industry, many of them in the middle of their career borrowed the network of somebody else. Think about it this way. If I'm trying to get to President Obama, am I going to be better served by going to him directly or somebody who knows him who I know? Somebody who knows him that I know. Because I'm borrowing the connection to Obama. So when you're in the middle of your career, you're best served by a borrowed network. And then at the latter stages of your career, you're best served by a sparse network. The opposite is true for whites. The tiered approach I'm describing is best for African Americans. That's what studies have shown. So what I'm talking about here is really a entrepreneurial way of thinking about how to network. Much like a moment ago, I talked about an entrepreneurial way of thinking about your career. Lastly, mentoring. 6 roles of a mentor: teacher, coach, counselor, sponsor, confidant, role model. Those are the 6 roles of a mentor. Old school glass ceiling thinking once suggested that you want to have a mentor in your organization who is high ranking and non-minority. That was old school thinking. You wanted a white man who's the CEO to be your mentor, for example. They're going to show you the ropes and kind of bring you along. New school ever-changing game thinking says that you want to have different mentors to fill different roles at different times in your career. We found a study that looked at minority executives who have won the game, been successful. And what you found was in the early stages, they had mentors who were within their group, within their team, in their department. Latter stages, mentors who were high ranking. But across all phases of their careers, they had 2 things in their networks that were characterized. One is they had diverse relationships, not just all minority, not just all non-minority, but diverse relationships. And they also have relationships that spanned areas across different sectors. So they were diverse both ethnically and diverse in terms of industry, that they really branched out to. That's why this networking that Clifton's talking about is so important for us to branch out beyond our comfort zones in the 21st century. Those are keys to success. When I think about networking, I think about what makes for good relationships is like what makes for a good marriage. The right fit, communication, a good relationship, etc. It reminds me of the story of the husband and the wife who were in the hospital, and the husband had been ill for months, and they couldn't quite figure out what was wrong with him, so they admitted him to the hospital. He was there for weeks. They still couldn't diagnose what the issue was with the husband's illness. But the doctor came into the room with the wife at her husband's bedside and said, "Ma'am, I'd like to talk to you in the hallway. Something we want to share with you." So they went into the hallway and closed the door, and he said, "Look, ma'am, we still don't know what the problem is with your husband, but what we do know is what it will take for him to get better." She said, "Well, what will it take?" She said, "Well, for him to get better, you will have to cook him 3 meals a day. You will have to show him tender, loving care around the clock. You have to love him, show him affection, be there for him 24/7, 365. If you can do that, we're 100% certain he will get better." He said, "Do you understand?" She said, I understand. Thank you so much." She went back into the room. The husband said, "Well, honey, what did the doctor say?" He said, "Honey, the doctors told me you're going to die." The lesson being that in a good mentoring relationship, they've got your back in the room and they've got your back outside the room. That's the lesson there. I'm talking about, amen. So I'm talking about entrepreneurial mentoring, thinking about the right mentor for the right need for the right time. This is all about lessons that we can all conclude from the work that we've done and the people that we've talked to. Different mentors for different needs, but also the importance of mentoring others, right? Not just being mentored, but being a mentor. Building relationships that are diverse ethnically, socially, and organizationally behooves us all. Seeking quality experiences over fast advancement. Quality experiences that feed your passion over fast advancement that feeds your passion. And choosing an organization, choosing work that suits your personality, that suits your values, that suits your passion, that fulfills you. So I say to others who manage others or work with others, don't block somebody else's blessing. Be an enabler, don't hate. Celebrate, rejuvenate, motivate, roller skate, but think about the energy you can positively generate that can help us as a community move forward. That's what we need to do. So, as I conclude, it's only when we challenge the environments that we find ourselves in that these ideals of the moving beyond the glass ceiling to the ever-changing game can indeed take life, that we can successfully win the ever-changing game, but it also brings me full circle back to the question I posed to you that I told you I would answer. That's right, I'm going to answer it. Thank you. At the beginning of my remarks, I asked you to think about the following. If we could go back and talk to African Americans in 1986, and what do you hope to see 30, 40 years from today because of our efforts today to advance our efforts in professional environments? My answer to the question is actually twofold. It's got two parts. Part number one, I believe first and foremost, what we hope to see 40 years from now is that we have sufficiently leveled the playing field that everyone has equal opportunity to fulfill their destiny. That the challenge is, or rather, we want destiny to not be a matter of chance, but destiny to be a matter of choice. The tragedy is when people don't have or are denied the choice to fulfill their destiny. Think about how many Clifton Johnsons never had a chance to become Clifton Johnson because the playing field would not allow for it. Think about how many Judge Melody Armstrongs never had a chance to become Judge Melody Armstrong because the playing field would not allow it. How many Irv Adams, how many Jason Bookers, how many Aaron Davises could not become Irv or Jason or Aaron because the playing field was too imbalanced that they just couldn't make it over the hurdles. The reason why we are here this morning and must continue to support groups like the Empower series is that we must work to level the playing field, that our children, our children's children have equal opportunity to fulfill their destiny. Amen. The second part of my answer, the second part, it's always the second part, is that for those of us who are indeed destined to be in the privileged places we find ourselves, working in schools and in government and in entrepreneurship and in corporate America, those of us who have been blessed to have the doors of opportunity open in some way, shape, or form for us, what we hope to see 40 years from now is for any of us, all of us who make it to those places, that we are doing everything we can to make it easier for those who come after us to do the same. That we're not squandering the table, but rather, what do you do when you get to the table to make it easier for somebody else to be at the table? That we are not meant to see through each other, but to see each other through. Somebody tweet that. That we are not meant to see through each other, but to see each other through. And similarly, it is the greatest responsibility for all of us to be good ancestors. That is our greatest responsibility, to be good ancestors. That to be responsible shepherds of the offices and the cubicles and the office complexes that we occupy for those who will one day occupy them after we do. For the tragedy here lies in the sobering reality that our corporations, our organizations, our entities and institutions, still to this day at the executive levels, from 1995 and 2.5% are now at an alarming 3.5% in 2017, and that is unacceptable. It's unacceptable. So it is therefore incumbent upon us that when given the opportunity to create opportunity, that we do not shy away from the opportunity. And that is the foundational message I bring to you. Or stated differently, as I go to my seat, it is then and only then, when we fight to make the workplace a better place, to level the playing field, that we move beyond the glass ceiling, but rather we redefine the ever-changing game. Or stated differently, it's then and only then that those of us who've got game can make sure if there's a young person with mad game, that nobody can run game on their game. That young person will have an equal opportunity to learn the game, play the game, and master the game, and win the game, because we today redefined the game. Such that when that young person grows older and finds herself or himself walking through the halls of some hallowed corporate organization, and somebody walks up to them with an attitude and says, "You got game?" They can look them in the eye and confidently reply, "Not only do I have game, but my people have had game since the beginning of time. In fact, I don't even know what game you're talking about. Last time I checked, the game is over. God bless you and thank you." I'm happy to take some questions. We got time for questions? Let's take questions. Yes. I can come out now.
I really enjoyed it. I told you I was going to bring my son David.
You did.
And he's here today. But you talked about excellence yesterday and talked about how you have to be excellent for yourself. Would you just kind of go over that a little bit?
You want the cliff notes on yesterday?
Yeah, I want him to hear from you. Because you wrote in this book, I didn't even know, make billions.
I sure did.
Okay.
I was going to write after that, and make sure you give some to mom. I wrote that in Clifton's book. That's right. So yesterday I talked about demonstrating excellence. It's the third strategy in the book.
Right. Demonstrate
Excellence. And I define excellence according to 4 facets on a diamond. The first facet you heard about today is passion. If you want to be excellent, you got to be passionate about what you do. Second facet are your gifts. God has blessed us all with gifts. The question is, what are your gifts? And I talked about how I've yet to go to a school or a church that has a chorus or a choir with one person who is passionate about singing, but not gifted in singing. You know who I'm talking about, right? They get the solo. I don't know why they get the solo. Off key, off note, can't carry a note with a handle. So passion and gifts, you got to have the intersection of those two. You got to have the passion and you got to have the gift. I had a passion for basketball. I didn't have the gift. I was good, but not great, right? Passion and gifts. Then at the bottom of the diamond, discipline is the third facet. That you've got to put in the hard work. You've got to put in the hours, put in the energy, put in the effort, put in the work to perfect what God has blessed you with. And I said to the folks yesterday, hard work is not a skill. Hard work is a choice. You choose to do it or you choose not to do it. It's that simple. You choose to study, you choose not to. You choose to stay up late, you choose not to. You choose to party or you choose to work. It's your choice. It's a choice. So passion, gifts, discipline. The last facet, faith. Faith. The substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things unseen. It is faith that is the defining facet of the diamond, because you could have passion and gifts and discipline, but without faith, that's like writing a business plan but not launching the business. Without faith, it's like envisioning a nonprofit but never launching the nonprofit. It's like entering corporate America but not believing you could reach the C-suite. Without faith, it all goes to waste. So it's the belief in oneself, the belief in a higher power, the belief in something greater that brings the passion and the gifts and the discipline all together. I went to a last quick story. I went to an event back in 2008, if my memory serves, maybe 2007, when Obama was running for office the first time. And he walked in, it was the summer before the year that he was elected, and he walked in, he's cool, he got that swagger, right? He came to the mic and he said, because he was way behind Hillary Clinton in the polling right then, and most folk didn't think he could win. I didn't think he could win. He came to the mic and he said, first thing he said, didn't say, welcome, thanks for coming. He said, I know many of you don't believe I can win, but you will believe that I can win when you see me place my hand on the Bible and get sworn in front of Michelle, Sasha, and Malia and become the 44th president of the United States of America. I turned to the person next to me, I said, this guy, he can win. But what happened, right? He won. And he had the passion, he had the gifts, he had the discipline. But that night, when he showed me, he had the faith. I didn't have the faith, he had the faith. So that's excellence right there, those four. That was funny. That was like 9 years ago. Questions? There's got to be a few more. Yes. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you for coming. I do. God bless you. Yes. Thank you, sister. Just wonderful. Thank you, sister. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I watched the first 3 seasons. I don't know how many people saw my season of The Apprentice, but I watched the first 3 seasons, and what I wanted to make sure that I did on the show, and I may have gotten even carried away, is I wanted to project a positive image of a brother. I wanted to have a brother on TV that folk could be proud of, and not act a fool, as can happen in reality television, but just a positive image that shows that you can succeed without bouncing a ball or rapping a song, but just by working hard, getting good grades, and pursuing your passion. And so I appreciate the feedback on that. I appreciate it. Thank you. Other questions? Yes.
I've heard you before at our national convention of the Black accountants, and I hear you now, and I just see the growth even in that span of time. So you continue growing, and I really admire you for that.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, sir. Appreciate
So one of the other things you were saying in the passion and purpose, and I directed the program that Cliff's son applied to, and as I read in terms of what they wanted to be, a lot of them saying they want to be entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. And initially I was thinking, gosh, you're high school now, an entrepreneur, what's the gap? But I like the fact that you talked about a mindset, because even in corporate America, the entrepreneur minded, and so it's not telling them that you can't do it, but how to close the gaps.
That's right.
What are you going to do? You get in high school now. You got 2 years or 3 years in high school, and what college you go into, what plan you go. And so we all know that going to college and just student college are 2 different things. Right. How to keep.
Well, let me just piggyback off that. Don't sleep on young folk. From an entrepreneurial standpoint, I started at 19, my first business, 19. And the guy who inspired me was 18 when he started his first business. And if you look out, and I have this in Campus CEO, young people are starting more and more successful companies at younger and younger ages. I'm gonna give you a list of companies started by students. You'll be blown away. You knew Microsoft, you knew Dell Computers, you probably knew Google and Yahoo and Facebook. You might not have known Kinko's, founded by a student, Pizza Hut, founded by a student, Subway, founded by a student, Federal Express, founded by a student, Bad Boy Records, founded by a student. Def Jam Recordings, founded by a student. I can go on and on and on. All founded by students. And, quick story, Federal Express, Fred Smith, who founded it, wrote a paper in school on the concept of overnight mail, and the teacher gave him a C. Said, there is no way you can get mail overnight. You get a C. So Fred Smith did what young people do. Said, you can't tell me what's not possible. I will show you what is possible. And we don't know a world without overnight mail today. And if that teacher knew then what we know now, he said, I'll see you at the bank. And made some money on that deal. So I was a campus CEO, 19 as an entrepreneur, had the mindset, didn't have the skill set. So what I wanted the book to do is give young people the skills to know how to navigate entrepreneurship that I didn't have when I was their age. Yeah, I made a lot of mistakes. I can go on about that. Yes. You have a question?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, if you have any recommendations on how to help build that Sparse Network as you progress in your career?
Yeah, you know, it's really events like this, both within our community and beyond our community, that you've got to really challenge yourself to get out of your comfort zone. You know, it's going to events you otherwise wouldn't go to. It's surrounding yourself with people you otherwise would not surround yourself with. It's being involved in organizations you never would have imagined being involved with. So I've done a much better job as I've gotten older of stretching Indian, Native American, Hispanic. I mean, my network of business contacts, and I studied in England for 2 years. So my contacts are now international, which I've learned the value of having the contacts, but also the context. That if I'm doing business with an Indian, I've got enough of a flavor for their culture that I can be comfortable and effective in doing business with them. So I'm learning more all the time about this whole cultural competence space, but I've been challenging myself to move beyond my comfort zone to do that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Randal Pinkett, you mentioned yesterday that you had been to 5 companies. 4 of those companies were not successful, and the 5th one obviously is. What did you gain from the 4? Why did you think the 4 were not successful? And what did you learn from the 4 that makes you where you are today?
Right, so I've launched 5 companies, 4 of them have failed. And they failed miserably, let's be clear. The first company, when I was 19, I sold something young folk may not know about. It's called compact discs. You know about compact discs, young lady? You do? All right. Somebody told you about it, or you actually? She said somebody told me about it. I sold compact discs out of my dormitory in college. That was my first venture. Second venture was doing education and training, professional development. Third venture was a telecommunications company, voice, video, and data, if you're into technology. The 4th company was an inner city consulting group focused on solutions for the inner city. The 4th company right now is fifth. BCT Partners, Consulting Technology and Data Analytics, specializing in big data, analyzing big data sets. Why did the first 4 fail? Different reasons for different ventures. I'll give you a few. One, I didn't pick my partners very wisely early on. You know, I say all the time, being in business is like being married. You have a financial obligation. You have a legal obligation. You have to see them every day. You got to communicate effectively. You know, it's like a marriage. And I didn't think in a discriminatory way about who is a good partner and who's not. And so I have 3 long-time partners, but some other partners we had to kick out. Some of them we had to escort out. And some left. So those led to some of the failures. Second is we didn't anticipate changes in the marketplace. So think about what happened to Blockbuster. Think about what happened to Circuit City. Think about what happened to Kodak and Polaroid. Think about what's happening to the taxi industry. Right now, we're witnessing it. That happened to us. When we were doing training, we were all face-to-face instructor-led. Technology came in and transformed the industry. We didn't get on the technology bus fast enough. We got obsoleted just like that. So it's those 2 dynamics of poor partners, bad choices, not anticipating market trends that we have learned the lessons of that. So we've put in place processes to make sure that we are vetting partners and that we're scanning trends in the marketplace on how they might affect us. We didn't do that back then. All right. Other questions? Yes, young man.
So what industry were you
Rising Junior at Texas Tech University.
Round of applause for that, Rising Junior.
So I was going to ask you, as a PhD, what role do you think your education has played in your entrepreneurial endeavors?
Right. So I'm a bit of an oxymoron, meaning I've got 5 degrees, but I've launched 5 companies. That's a bit paradoxical. And people often ask me, do you need an education to be successful in business? Of course you don't. Of course you don't. People are successful in business without education. You know what I'm talking about. So for me, my education has been instrumental in my entrepreneurial success because I'm in an industry that requires a level of education and training to compete. You don't just stumble on how to analyze data. You don't stumble on how to build technology systems. You don't just stumble on integrating technology or designing software. Now, you could self-learn it, let's be clear. That wasn't my path. My path was I went through the traditional educational process, and it's no accident, Google came out of Stanford. Yahoo came out of Stanford. Microsoft came out of Harvard. Dell came out of University of Texas. That's not an accident, because they had a certain scaffolding in their space. Facebook came out of Harvard, right? You saw the movie. So is that, you all saw the movie, right? Okay. It was that educational experience that I think gave birth to companies like mine and like those other companies. Could we have found it another way? Yes, but for us, was it our best path? It was our best path. Yeah. So I'm a big proponent of education. Yeah, but I'm also a big proponent of wealth. So I say to young people, if there's a window of opportunity for a venture, I'm not mad if you leave school to go after it. If you are confident you can seize the opportunity. Oprah had 1 credit left when she left. Well, folks don't, she had 1 credit left. Zuckerberg left. Gates left. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Because if they didn't do it then, somebody else would have done it. Somebody else would have done it. And look at what Gates has done with money. Look at what Oprah's done with money. Look at what Zuckerberg's done with money. They've been like, oh, I'm going to go to math class. Like, dude, go! Get that money! We need more black billionaires, let's be clear. We need more black billionaires. Now, I volunteer myself. But I invite all of you to help cultivate that next generation that is more than 10. It's only 10 on the whole planet. Yes. Yeah.
Component of wealth. What value do you place on the idea of giving back, gifting, charitable gifting,
No doubt.
investment in our culture to continue the trend? You see someone, you have an obligation to put back into them. What value do you put on that? So once you're in the vein of getting there and you get there, how important is that?
Yeah, so I'm gonna give you insight to my journey. And I'm gonna complete the circle on the book. The book is Black Faces in White Places, 10 Game-Changing Strategies to Achieve Success and Find Greatness. Achieve success and find greatness. Now, what is success? Success to me is what you do for yourself. Success is how you help yourself. Success is what you do for yourself to earn money, achieve fame, fortune, wealth, all the accoutrements of what we define as success. Greatness, how do I define greatness? What you do for somebody else. What you do for somebody else. Now, when I was younger, I was chasing success like it was going out of style. I wanted the money, I wanted the fame, I wanted to be known, I wanted the wealth, I wanted to chase all of that. I'm not hating on chasing after a comfortable lifestyle, I'm not hating on that. I'm saying that as I've grown older and more mature and wiser, I've realized that that's not what God is calling me to do. God's not calling me to be successful. He's calling me to be great. He's not asking me, what are you doing for yourself, Randall? He's saying, what are you doing for somebody else? And Dr. King has a great quote, everyone can be great because everyone can serve. Everyone can be great because everyone can serve. I'll give you the last example, Harriet Tubman. By any societal standard, Harriet Tubman was not successful. She died broke. Wealth to her name. She was not successful. I don't care how you can't argue me on that. She was not successful. But from the people whose lives she saved, from the Underground Railroad that she led, from the sacrifices she made for others, how she served, the woman was great. She was great. And it's only appropriate that Tubman would now be on the $20 bill as a symbol of wealth for a woman who was great. That's just an incredible story, right? That's incredible. So my point is, I'm now chasing greatness. My legacy needs to be how great did I serve God, not how great did I serve myself. Yeah. But you asked me that at 20, I'd give you a whole different answer. But I appreciate that question, I do. Other questions before we wrap. I'm looking at Clifton on time. How we doing? Sure we good? All right, let's see, we got maybe one or more, maybe one more before we wrap. I'll make quick answers so we can get everybody out of here. Yes.
I'll ask you again, I'm gonna take advantage of you while
Please,
you're here.
please.
The 3.5 that you talked about, how do we, get there? I mean, we've marched, we've had Jesse Jackson fight, we're doing all this, so, what do you think?
Well, I laid out a bit of a blueprint in my remarks. We've got to not work harder, but think smarter, which means we've got to be more entrepreneurial in how we approach what we do. And I think we also have to reframe the conversation, that I think it's a broader set of pathways that we need to be mindful of and need to be tracking, that it's not just how we're advancing in corporate America, but also how we're advancing in government, in nonprofits, in churches, and schools, et cetera. And I personally think we've got to change the conversation from income to wealth. I'm less concerned about our representation at the executive levels than I am at our wealth creation. And the average net worth of a white household today is about $121,000. The average net worth of a black household is about $19,000. And we don't have an income problem. $4.5 trillion is a whole lot of income. We have a wealth problem. Exactly. And so to round it out, I'm gonna go here. If you ask every millionaire in America how they made their millions, think about that. Did they make it through inheritance, through the lottery, through saving, through investing, through a business, through whatever? If you ask them the question, how they make their millions, they will tell you 7 out of 10 made it by owning a business. So if you do the math on that, do the math. You cannot create more wealth unless we create more entrepreneurs. There's no other way we can pull it off. So we've got to get our young people getting the Kool-Aid like I got the Kool-Aid. You ask me at 18, your future, I want a job. Ask me at 19, what do you want? I want to own my own business and create jobs. And so I could have been a lost opportunity if Wayne, my friend, hadn't started his business at 18. I saw him doing it, and I'm like, if he can do it, why can't I do it? So we got to get our young people excited about entrepreneurship and get more wealth and not worry about the income. And I think a lot of issues will take care of themselves. Oh, yes.
At my tender young age, and looking back,
That's right.
10, 20 years ago, and the language I talk to my children, I'm finding now that it's more of a financial literacy type thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was sold in degree, get a good education, get a good job, retired, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's more about building with
That's right.
investment.
That's right.
Not how much you make, but what you do with it.
Well said. Well
And
said.
just planting that seed.
That's right.
Spreading it throughout the community.
You on point. Round of applause for that. No doubt. No, that's what it's all about.
Rather than working for other people.
There we go.
Your entire life. It's a choice, like you said.
It is.
That's what you desire, so be it. But
No
there's
doubt.
other ways to maintain a certain level of wealth.
Yeah, and culturally, the principles of building wealth are learned in the home. Meaning the reason why other communities are ahead is because other communities have been in this space much longer than we have. You don't get it in school. You don't get it in school. Even the best schools don't give you wealth building principles. I'm sorry.
Think as simple as letting your children be authorized users on your card.
Mm-hmm.
And building a credit foundation long before they're
That's right.
even working.
That's right.
Whereas the other people, it's a given.
That's right. They get the card, they buy something for themselves on their child's card to get their child's credit to a point where they, once they're ready.
But yet it's still they benefit from it.
There you go. Exactly right. She was saying that folks are doing things in the home to help their kids at a young age to appreciate building credit and generating wealth. And we need to do more of that in our community, in that mindset. Yeah. No, absolutely. And let me say this last thing, I'm going to go over here, is the number one predictor of whether you will own a business is not your race, not your gender, not your nationality. It's if your parents owned a business. It's the number one predictor of whether you will own a business. Why? Because if you see it, you can then mirror it. Yes.
When choosing a business partner for your business, and you have somebody who is sharp. You know, they're on top of it, they're smart, they know what they're doing. Then you have, but they don't necessarily have the same values and things that you value and things that are important to you. What would you say in how to evaluate and how to choose? Would you choose that person?
I would run. I would run. And again, I've learned over the years, early in my career, I wouldn't have run. And I learned the hard way. One of the lessons I learned when I worked for Donald Trump, for example, I came in, I was 12 years younger than I am now. I came in kind of eyes open and mind open to what is it like to run $1 billion company. I want to see what this is all about. And I'm thinking that whatever they do must be right, because there's billions of dollars here. Like, it must be right. And I got in there and I'm like, you know what? That's disrespectful. That behavior is not how I was brought up. Did you just really say that to that person? Like, did you really just say that to them? There's a lot of bad things going on over here. And so at the end of the year, I was ready to run. And I did. I ran. I was asked to stay. I said, I don't want to stay. I'm going back to my company where folk act right. Where folk respect people. We don't step on toes. So culture, fit, chemistry, being on the same page, all of that is paramount. And then is, what do they bring to the table? But what they bring to the table does not matter if we can't work together in a way that's collegial. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. Last one. All right, we'll wrap on this one.
In the entrepreneurial spirit, the mindset, oftentimes when a person, particularly minorities, is starting out, they don't have the liquidity to do it the way other people do it. Do you believe in the organic growth of a company, or do you believe it's okay to leverage other people's money? What's the best?
Yeah. Do I believe in organic growth, or do I believe in leveraging other people's money? I believe in OPP. I am down with OPP. You know me. Other people's property, not the other P's. Now, having said that, not everybody has access to money. I mean, so let me be even clear. I have 3 partners. We were all first-generation entrepreneurs. We were all broke. All of us were broke. And if we had gone to anyone in our families, like say my grandfather, say, Granddad, can I borrow $1,000? My granddad would have been like, yo, I'm gonna give you this money. But let me tell you something right now. I will be in your office every day asking you, what are you doing with my money, and when am I gonna get it back? And he's real about that, right? So, as a result of us being broke, we had to do it organically. And when I was at Barack Obama Male Leadership Academy, one of the young men asked me, so have you ever made $1 million? I said, yeah, I've made $1 million. He said, what'd you do with it? I said, I didn't spend it. And he was like, what? You ain't spend it? Then the rest of the room was like, he ain't spend it? Clifton was there. And my message was, if you want to grow it organically, you can't spend it. You got to put all of it back in to reinvest, to grow, to reinvest, to grow, to reinvest, to grow, because you have little. What I've also learned, to round out the question, is if you look at successful companies and ask how much money did they raise, the myth is you need a lot. And the reality is you don't. If you look at, again, I'm not talking about failed companies, I'm saying successful companies. Half of them raised $20,000 or less. A third of them raised $10,000 or less. And 1 out of every 10 successful companies starts with $1,000 or less. Ours or less.
Wow.
But that's a myth that you necessarily need a lot of money to get a venture off the ground. Now, some companies do, right? If you need equipment or whatever, you can't get around that. But there's lots of ways to skin the cat. The fact is, entrepreneurship is about making something out of nothing. Or in the words of Tupac, make $1 out of 15 cents, stay legit, and still pay your rent. And that's what we did, and we kept it moving. So that's it right there, folks. Thank you. God bless you. Dallas, Texas, appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Coming to the Empower series has been a great inspiration to me in my life. As a would-be young entrepreneur, listening to Dr. Randal Pinkett for the first time in person has given me a brand new outlook on life that I too can be a campus CEO. And I want to thank him and the Empower series for once again giving me encouragement in my life so I can be an encouragement to everyone else out there who also wants to be a CEO in their own right. I'm definitely going to keep returning to the Empower Series event to be encouraged, and I'm going to bring others along with me young people as well so they can be encouraged to do what they have to do, become a campus CEO or a CEO, an entrepreneur. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ryan McDowell. Today from the series, I took away that excellence is more than just striving for something for yourself, but it's striving for everybody. It's about more than just doing for you. It's about doing for everyone and empowering through yourself and through your experiences yourself. I took away great networking tools about how in the beginning of my career I should have a very close network, and how in the middle of my career I should start to build out as far as I get along, and that every opportunity is an opportunity you should take. You should really sit back and take time to think about the opportunities that you're gifted, and to think if that matches with your passion.
This was an amazing experience with Dr. Pinkett. His idea of redefining the game and how we need to reframe the fact that there isn't a glass ceiling, and just how the game is played and how we need to navigate our professional and personal lives. It was just amazing to learn about how the difference between success and just, how you're going to change the world. And it just inspired me to make changes in my life. And it also inspired me to continue to mentor people that are younger than me.